The mountain looked dead. No lights, no movement, no sound except the cold wind sliding across the rocks. Midnight had already passed when 12 shadows stopped at the base of the ridge. Every man there was trained to disappear. Black uniforms. Night vision. Weapons ready! No one spoke. At the front of the line stood the oldest man among them. His beard carried more gray than black, but his eyes were sharp, watching the dark mountain as if it were alive. Commander Elias Ward, 30 years in Special Forces, hundreds of missions. But tonight felt different. The briefing had been simple. An enemy bunker hidden deep inside the mountain, a place so secret that satellites could barely detect it. 12 men had been sent to enter. Only 12. Because this mission needed soldiers who did not panic, and who understood that sometimes extraction never comes. Ward lifted his hand. The team stopped instantly. A narrow entrance sat between two massive rocks, almost invisible. A tunnel leading straight into the mountain. Cold air drifted from inside. One of the younger soldiers whispered quietly, "Sir, you feel that?" Ward didn't answer immediately. Yes, he felt it. Not fear. Something older. Something that soldiers sometimes recognize before a battle even begins. The strange feeling that the night is already watching you. He turned slowly toward the team. 12 men. Every one of them trusted him with their life. Ward spoke calmly. Once we enter, we move silent. 2 lines. No lights unless I say. Stay close. Understood? 12 quiet voices answered together. Yes, sir. Ward stepped forward first. His boots touched the stone floor of the tunnel. The darkness swallowed the light behind them. The team followed. One by one, the temperature dropped instantly inside the mountain. Water dripped somewhere far ahead, echoing through the tunnel like distant footsteps. 10 meters, 20 meters, 30. The tunnel widened. Strange markings covered the concrete walls. Old, not recently built. Ward slowed his pace. His instincts were screaming now. Something was wrong. Very wrong. He lifted his fist. The entire team froze. Then, a sound came from deeper inside the mountain. Not gunfire, not footsteps. A metal door slowly closing. Clang. The echo rolled through the tunnel like thunder. One of the soldiers whispered, "Sir, someone knows we're here." Ward stared into the endless darkness ahead. His voice dropped lower than before. Stay sharp, because whatever is inside this mountain was waiting for us. And at that moment, none of them knew that before sunrise, the mountain would only release 1 man alive. The tunnel swallowed their footsteps. Cold air pressed against their faces as the team moved deeper into the mountain. No one spoke. Only the soft rhythm of boots touching concrete echoed through the darkness. Commander Elias Ward walked at the front, night vision casting the world in dull green shadows. Something felt wrong. Not the silence. Soldiers are trained for silence. This was different. The tunnel was too clean. No dust, no loose debris. As if someone had been using it recently, but had carefully erased every trace. Ward raised his hand. The line stopped instantly. He crouched near the wall, running his fingers over the concrete. Fresh scratches, not natural. Metal scraping against stone. Behind him, one of the operators whispered through the comm. "Sir, this place looks abandoned." But it's not. Ward nodded slowly. He had noticed something else. There were cameras. Tiny black lenses hidden near the ceiling. Inactive, but placed perfectly to watch every movement. Someone had built this tunnel to observe whoever entered it. Ward stood again and signaled the team forward. They moved another 30 meters before the tunnel split into 2 directions, left and right, both equally dark. The chamber fell silent again. 50 empty bunks, weapons racks stripped clean, a base that should have been abandoned, but clearly wasn't. Commander Elias Ward scanned the room slowly. Every instinct in his body told him the same thing. They were not alone. He lifted his hand and motioned the team into defensive positions. 2 men covered the tunnel behind them. 3 moved toward the far side of the chamber. No sudden movements, no noise, just controlled breathing and steady fingers on triggers. Then, a faint click echoed somewhere above them. Ward's head snapped upward. Too late. The first burst of gunfire exploded from the darkness. Hot, tot, tot, tot. Muzzle flashes erupted from hidden openings along the upper walls. "Contact!" someone shouted. The room instantly turned into chaos. Bullets ripped across the chamber. Metal bunks sparked as rounds slammed into them. 2 soldiers dropped instantly before they could even return fire. Ward dove behind a steel support column. "Upper level!" he shouted. "Return fire!" His team reacted immediately. Controlled bursts of gunfire answered the ambush. The chamber filled with deafening echoes as rounds tore into the concrete ceiling. One of the hidden shooters fell from above, crashing down between the bunks. But the attack didn't stop. More gunfire erupted from the right tunnel entrance. They had been surrounded. "Right side!" someone yelled. Ward leaned out and fired 3 precise shots. One enemy soldier collapsed instantly, but another burst from the shadows and fired wildly into the room. A third operator fell beside the weapon racks. 3 men down. The mountain echoed with gunfire and shouting. Ward's voice cut through the chaos. "Left flank move!" 2 surviving operators sprinted across the chamber, sliding behind heavy crates. Their rifles roared, forcing the attackers to pull back. For a moment, the gunfire slowed. Smoke drifted through the air. The ringing in their ears slowly faded. Ward quickly counted heads. 1, 2, 3, 4. Only 8 men remained standing. 4 had already fallen, and the mission had barely begun. One of the soldiers whispered through heavy breathing, "Sir, how did they know we were coming?" Ward stared toward the dark tunnel where the attackers had vanished. That question had already crossed his mind, because this ambush had been perfect. Too perfect. Someone had known exactly where they would enter, exactly when, and exactly how to trap them inside the mountain. Ward tightened his grip on his rifle. His voice dropped lower. "Stay sharp, because whoever set this trap..." Smoke drifted slowly through the underground chamber. The sound of gunfire had faded, but the silence that replaced it felt even heavier. Commander Elias Ward stayed behind the steel column, scanning the tunnels ahead. 8 men remained. 4 had already fallen, and the enemy had disappeared just as quickly as they appeared. Too quickly. Ward stepped out carefully, rifle raised. "Check the exits," he ordered quietly. 2 operators moved toward the right tunnel. Another covered the chamber entrance behind them. The bodies of their fallen teammates lay motionless between the bunks. No one spoke. One of the younger soldiers knelt beside a fallen operator, checking his gear. Then his voice came over the comm, tense. "Sir, something's wrong." Ward turned immediately. "What is it?" The soldier held up a small device, a tracker. Small, black, military grade. Ward's eyes narrowed. That device wasn't enemy equipment. It belonged to their own unit. "How did that get there?" someone whispered. The soldier shook his head slowly. It was attached inside his vest, hidden. Ward felt a cold realization forming. That meant their position had been transmitted. Every step they took inside the mountain, every movement, someone had been feeding information to the enemy. One of the operators spoke quietly. "Sir, that means..." Ward finished the sentence. "There's a leak." The room fell completely silent. 8 men stood there, 7 loyal soldiers, and 1 traitor. No one moved. No one even breathed loudly. Trust had disappeared in a single moment. Ward slowly walked into the center of the chamber, his voice calm but heavier now. "The enemy knew our entry point. They knew our timing, and they knew where to attack." He looked at each soldier one by one, carefully, reading faces, watching eyes. A long second passed. Then one of the operators spoke up nervously. "Sir, you think one of us planted it?" Ward didn't answer right away, because deep down he already knew. This mission had been classified at the highest level. Only the 12 men on this team had the full route. No one else. Which meant the truth was unavoidable. The traitor was standing in the room with them. Suddenly, a gunshot echoed. Bang. One soldier collapsed instantly. Everyone spun around, but the shooter had already moved. A dark figure sprinted toward the right tunnel. Ward fired immediately. 3 shots chased the fleeing shadow. but the man disappeared into the darkness. The chamber returned to silence. 7 soldiers were now 6, and the truth had finally revealed itself. There was a traitor. The tunnel swallowed the traitor. His footsteps echoed once, twice, and then disappeared into the darkness. For a second, no one moved. Commander Elias Ward lowered his rifle slowly, eyes locked on the tunnel where the man had vanished. 6 soldiers remained now. 6 men standing inside a mountain that had already taken half their team. Ward spoke calmly. "We move." No hesitation. No argument. The remaining operators formed a tight line behind him and entered the right tunnel. The passage was narrower than the others. Bare concrete walls. Dim emergency lights flickering overhead. The air felt heavier. And somewhere ahead. Movement. Ward raised his fist. The team froze. A faint mechanical hum echoed deeper in the mountain. Generators. That meant power. And where there was power, there were people. They moved again, slower now. 20 meters forward, the tunnel suddenly opened into a massive underground hall. Ward stopped immediately. The room was enormous. Crates of weapons stacked along the walls. Radio equipment. Large steel doors leading to different sections of the base. But that wasn't what made the team tense. Soldiers. Dozens of them. Armed. Waiting. The traitor stood near the center of the room, breathing heavily, pointing directly toward the tunnel entrance. "There they are!" he shouted. Enemy rifles rose instantly. Ward didn't wait. "Fire!" The hallway exploded into gunfire. Bullets tore across the room in both directions. 2 enemy soldiers dropped immediately. Ward's team spread into cover behind the doorway and crates. Controlled bursts of fire pushed the enemy backward, but the numbers were overwhelming. Rounds slammed into the concrete walls around them. One operator beside Ward was hit in the shoulder and fell behind a crate. "I'm hit," he gasped. Ward pulled him back behind cover and returned fire. 3 enemies rushed forward from the left side. Ward's rifle barked 3 times. All 3 collapsed before they could reach the tunnel, but more kept coming. Gunfire echoed like thunder through the underground hall. Another soldier from Ward's team dropped. Then another. 6 had entered the tunnel. Only 3 were still fighting now. Ward glanced toward the center of the hall. The traitor had moved behind a control console, shouting orders to the enemy soldiers. Ward's eyes hardened. The man had betrayed them, led them straight into the trap, and now he was hiding behind the army he had helped prepare. Ward reloaded calmly, then spoke to the 2 remaining operators beside him. "Cover me!" Before they could respond, he stepped out into the open. Gunfire erupted instantly. Bullets slammed into the crates around him as he advanced across the hall. Ward fired with deadly precision. 1 enemy fell, then another. The traitor saw him coming and raised his weapon, but Ward was faster. Bang. The traitor collapsed beside the control console. For a brief moment, the entire hall went silent. Then the enemy soldiers opened fire again. Gunfire roared through the underground hall. The echo inside the mountain was deafening. Commander Elias Ward stood in the open space between the tunnel and the enemy lines, rifle steady in his hands. The traitor lay motionless beside the control console, but the battle was far from over. Enemy soldiers surged forward again, spreading across the hall and firing from every direction. Behind Ward, the last 2 operators were still fighting from cover. Their rifles fired in short, controlled bursts. For a moment, it looked like they might hold the line. Then a sudden explosion of gunfire tore across the crates where they were positioned. One of them fell instantly. The other tried to move to a new position, but another burst of bullets caught him before he could reach it. The sound of his rifle hitting the floor echoed through the hall. Now, Ward was alone. Dozens of enemies remained inside the base, and only 1 soldier stood against them. Ward didn't panic. He stepped back toward the tunnel entrance, forcing the enemy to approach through a narrower path. A tactical choke point. 1 man could control the flow. The first enemy soldier rushed forward. Ward fired once. The man dropped. Another followed, then another. Each step forward from the enemy was met with precise gunfire. Bodies began to pile near the entrance, but the attackers kept coming. Bullets ripped into the concrete walls around Ward. 1 round grazed his shoulder, Another struck his chest plate, knocking the air from his lungs. Still he stood. His rifle fired again, and again. The tunnel echoed with every shot. Enemy soldiers slowed their advance now, not because they lacked numbers, but because they could see something in the way the old commander moved. Calm, controlled, unbreakable. Ward reloaded one last time. The magazine clicked into place. He stepped forward slightly, reclaiming ground inside the hall. 3 enemies rushed him together. 3 shots answered them. All 3 fell. Smoke filled the air. The gunfire slowly faded. One by one, the remaining enemy soldiers began to retreat deeper into the base. The cost of reaching him had become too high. Silence returned to the underground hall. Ward stood still for several seconds, rifle raised, scanning every shadow. No movement, no voices, only the distant hum of the generators. He finally lowered his weapon. The battle was over. The mountain had taken 11 soldiers from his team, but it had not taken him. Commander Elias Ward looked around the massive hall filled with fallen enemies and broken equipment. The mission had been completed. The enemy base was no longer operational, but the victory felt heavy, because he had entered the mountain with 12 men. 20 years passed. The mountain still stood where it always had, cold, silent, and forgotten by most of the world. Nature had slowly taken the place back. Snow covered the ridges. Wind carved through the rocks the same way it had that night. But some places never truly forget what happened inside them. Far away from the mountain, in a quiet military hall filled with old photographs and faded medals, a group of young officers sat in complete silence. At the front of the room stood an older man. His hair had turned almost completely gray now. His face carried deep lines from years of command and war. Commander Elias Ward, the only soldier who walked out of the mountain alive. For years, the mission had been classified. Top secret. The official report had always been simple. 12 soldiers entered the enemy base. 11 were lost during the operation. The base was destroyed. The mission was successful. But the full story had never been told, until today. Ward looked across the room at the young officers listening to him. None of them had been alive when the mission happened. None of them had seen the mountain, or the men who never returned. He slowly placed an old photograph on the table in front of him. 12 soldiers stood in the picture, smiling, ready for the mission. Every one of them trusted the man standing beside them. Ward rested his hand on the photo for a moment. Then he finally spoke. "People say war is about victory," he said quietly. "But they're wrong." The room remained completely silent. Ward's eyes moved slowly across the faces in the photograph. War is about responsibility. You lead men into places where not all of them come back. The officers listening could feel the weight in his voice. One of them finally asked carefully, "Sir, how did you survive when the others didn't?" Ward didn't answer immediately. For years, that question had followed him everywhere. Instead, he looked back at the photograph again, at the 11 men who never left the mountain. Then he gave the only answer that mattered. "I didn't survive because I was stronger. I survived because they trusted me to finish the mission." He lifted the photograph and handed it to the young officer standing closest to him. "Never forget the men who stand beside you. Because leadership isn't about the man who walks out. It's about the ones who never get the chance." Outside the hall, the wind moved softly through the trees. The world continued forward as it always does. But inside that quiet room, the truth of the mountain finally belonged to the next generation. 12 soldiers entered. Only one returned.